We
Yes.
got lots of content for you tonight. Obviously, you know, I'm Robert, and next to me is my beautiful wife, Kitty, and we couldn't be more honored to be the co-founders of Innovators. And we appreciate you attending virtually. It's not everybody's favorite activity, but we'll be back, I'm sure, in the fall to face and and having that benefit. Although you'll see most of the Hoax folks together tonight, so that will be fun to see their format that they have. Just some quick housekeeping for all of you, I think important. The meeting's going to be recorded for those innovators that could not attend and other prospects that we have. Everyone's going to be muted through the presentations except during our group discussion. The chat feature, which undoubtedly you're all more familiar with than you'd like to be, is in the center of your toolbar, and at either the top or the bottom of your screen, you can start to submit questions, which will be utilized during the doctor's group kind of answering session, which BZ and Marcy will moderate for us, which I think you'll find very valuable. So I did mention, aside from some new members that I'm going to announce here in a moment, we've got some special guests. Dan Young, the chairman of our board of directors, is joining us tonight. Miles Chang, you heard me talking to a co-board member and someone that is very engaged with Hoag as a doctor and radiologist, Dr. Eugene Yim, who some of you might know within the Hoag Concierge Group. And then I understand, I didn't see him, but I'm told that the CEO of Hoag will be joining us tonight, Robert Braithwaite. So kind of a treat. Kitty and I have just been overwhelmed with the support and engagement of everyone to growing innovators. And I got to be honest, I would not have envisioned it would have gotten to the state that it is today this quickly. And I want to just tell you, you should all be quite proud of this, because it's not just, you know, Hoag or Kitty and I, it's all of you and the momentum that we've kind of collectively driven here. Believe it or not, you probably remember when we got together in the fall, it seemed like yesterday. And since that time, we now have 31 families that are involved with Hoag Innovators, quite amazing, and 12 new members. So some of you might know Debbie and Larry Green, Catherine and Stephen Gale, Tuesday Vopat and Stuart McClear, Patty and Mark Vidovich, Liz and Ray Kennedy, Diane and Robert Brooks, our very own Marcy Brown, who will be moderating tonight, and her husband, Soren Storgard, Rick LeBrun, and Angeli Tarsadia Reddy and Rishi Reddy, Debbie and Walter Cruttenden, Jim and Martha Freeman, and an anonymous couple that might be joining us tonight, but chose not to be recognized. We just want to thank all 12 of those families for joining, believing in our mission and our vision. And with that, I also want to thank our Innovators Advisory Board, Mike Gray, Mike Roberts, Rick Takeda, George Wood, for challenging us to elevate innovators. You'll hear more from Mike tonight, but really has gotten us to this next level with their support. Also, I thought it might be important to kind of re-describe for those guests that aren't familiar with Innovators, and certainly for those that might want to be reminded why we're all here and what's bringing us together as we go forward. Hoag Innovators is a group of donors with a shared vision for advancing healthcare innovation at Hoag by leveraging the power of collective giving. The group is defined by its active engagement, what we're doing tonight, discretionary review, which we're also doing tonight, and collaborative decision-making on which philanthropic investments will provide the most impact. So we're continuing to raise our game, and you'll hear about some questions that we're going to hold all of us to as we think about how we want to allocate our investment dollars. I'm hoping that you've all had a chance in your goodie bag, besides the munchies that we got, to get your Hoag Innovators impact piece. And what you'll note is that we're building quite an investment portfolio. We've just, in our early stages, invested in $1,655,000, 8 investments that you've made to date in your innovator portfolio, where we've invested 4 separate institutes, which was one of our goals for Kitty and I, to be involved in different institutes. We've invested in infection prevention and some, obviously, a Hoag-wide initiative. So we do have a full agenda tonight. I'm going to give you some of your lead players in the game. Marcy Brown, Senior Vice President, fellow innovator with her husband Soren, will be moderating. Dr. Michael Brandt Sawatsky, otherwise known as Beezy, Senior Physician Executive, Hoag and Ron and Sandy Simon, Executive Medical Director, Endowed Chair, Pickup Family and Neurosciences Institute. They're going to be our moderators, and they're, just will be keeping us engaged. Nicole Balsamo, Vice President of Development at Hoag Hospital Foundation. Kitty and I could not be more pleased for having Nicole leading innovators today from the Hoag Foundation standpoint. My good friend Mike Gray, who's going to share and update Innovators Endowment Fund, something that is going to ensure that innovators will last into perpetuity. And lastly, Dennis Drislin, a new name to some of you, is going to talk tonight about Harbor Tech Angels, something that you all as innovators can in fact participate in as one of the things that we wanted to bring to bear in adding value to our group. Finally, you're going to hear 4 presentations from distinguished physicians, and together we'll decide where to invest our dollars from our Innovators Fund. The advisory board met, and we recommend that we allocate tonight $500,000 to those from our current funds to those activities that we deem worthy. I'm especially excited to see presentations from some new areas, some areas that you haven't probably heard from: radiology and Hoag's pathology lab. As you listen to these 4 presentations, please be thinking about the following questions. We'll come back to this, but I want to have you think about them now. Which is the criteria that physicians were given to craft their presentations? And in turn, we evaluate these investments. What is the healthcare problem we are trying to address? And what is Hoag's answer to this problem? What will the outcomes and impact be? And how will this project differentiate Hoag from the competition? What is the timeline for implementation or purchase, and the overall cost? We're going to have some fun. I look forward to now turning it over to Marcy and Beezy as your moderators for the evening. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Are we good, team? Awesome. Great to be with you again this evening. Thank you so much, Robert, for that warm welcome and update. I'm going to begin this evening by just giving you a quick update on the goings-on at Hoag. So first of all, the great news about COVID is that there's not much to tell you. That is something to celebrate for sure. Our current Hoag census is 2 patients, and both of those patients are at Hoag Newport. Hoag Irvine has no current cases of COVID. So we're really, really excited about that. Just as exciting is the number of vaccines that we have administered, both to not only our physicians and the staff at Hoag caring for our patients, but also out in the community. We're pushing upwards of 29,000 vaccines, so very exciting. And this weekend, if you're in the Irvine Spectrum area, we're launching a vaccine site at the Irvine Spectrum on Saturday. So it's going to be a pop-up event for the community. We're going to be giving vaccines Thursday through Sunday at the Spectrum. I just couldn't believe the number of folks out shopping. Last Saturday, they said over 40,000 people were at the Spectrum. So very excited to be participating and partnering with the Irvine company. In addition to that, I don't know if many of you have seen in the press and on the news that we opened in full force our John Wayne Airport Fly Well Clinic, and we are giving vaccines to travelers out at the airport. So super excited about that. And I'm also kind of taken back at the number of vaccines that we've given to folks, to travelers out there. So that's exciting. Also, as exciting is we had a very successful launch of what we're calling our startup, Hoag at Home. And boy, the team got it just running right out of the gate. They've had so much success in the month of April when we launched this initiative. And Hoag at Home is literally just what it says. It's bringing care into the homes of our community members that want access to Hoag branded care in the home. So whether that's palliative care, whether that's in-home long-term care, whether that's giving infusions to patients in their homes, whether that's physical therapy in the home. The team has launched this initiative and is out delivering care with Hoag branded physicians, Hoag branded caregivers, physical therapists, RNs. And so far, the top referrers are indeed from HOI, Hoag Orthopedic Institute, Hoag Medical Group, and of course, Hoag. So very excited. And this is so cool. Check out these cars that you will be seeing out and about throughout Orange County. These are the caregivers going door to door, providing those services. And I'm really excited to see these out on the roads delivering that critical care. So we are very excited, and this is cause for celebration as we launch the expansion of Hoag services into the Irvine community. We're going to close escrow on the purchase of the land, the existing land that is underneath Hoag Hospital Irvine, and basically from Alton and Sand Canyon, for those of you who know the area, all the way to Hoag Health Center Drive. So we will close on this property on next Friday, May 28th. So this is that critical first step in being able to expand services. You will watch and see the build out of that first parking structure, which is critical. We have to get all those cars off of that land in front of the campus in order to build out our new hospitals. So we're really expanding this, what we're calling our healthcare village, and we're going to set the stage to create this personalized, curated experience, whether you're having a baby or in the fight of your life for cancer. Really, really excited about this. And isn't this mind-blowing? Check out this picture, the rendering of our women's ambulatory building in our women's hospital in Irvine. So as Sandy's team continuously works on refining the design, these specialized institute buildings, one, once again, is going to be for women's, and the other one will be dedicated to cancer and digestive health. This is going to set the stage for us to be able to continue to recruit and retain that world-class physician talent. And then lastly, this is very exciting. What you're looking at here is our state-of-the-art, innovative, adapted surgical pavilion. I talked to Sandy today, and I named this the surgical pavilion. So what this is going to do is allow us to recruit and retain those uber specialists that we're going to need to care for this community. We never imagined performing cardiac and neurosurgery in the community. We're going to do it. And we're going to really partner closely with the research and innovation companies in Irvine. It's going to become a show site. We're further going to develop and strengthen those relationships with companies like Surgical Theater and create a hybrid OR. Dr. Caffarelli has already said we've got to have that to care for this community. So very, very excited. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. BZ, who's going to talk to you a little bit about Catalyst.
Well, it's a thrill to be here with Marcy, particularly given that we once shared a stage in Chicago a few years ago. Reuniting as moderators like this is kind of fun. And it's also my privilege to be in front of this very astute and inspirational group of philanthropists and visionaries that are launching a new project. Think of this as the rocket being launched from the platform of the Innovator program that you're all part of. And let me share a little bit about Catalyst with you. So Catalyst is now a handmaiden of Hala Armian, who we recruited from the Draper Institute. And it is our Clinical and MedTech Innovation Hub. It stands for Center for Advancing Technology and Life Sciences Translation. We are setting it up to partner and collaborate with industry, as well as funding agencies. And the intent is to do what many organizations are doing, truly accelerating biomedical product development to the phase of FDA approval of products and the pharmaceutical drugs and their commercialization, partnering with Hoag Research to get there and allowing us a collaborative joint venture type of process with these entities. Many big names have catalysts or incubators, as they're also called in the trade. You can see the various names that Hoag is now joining. The benefits of this new innovation and really new project, a whole new almost business line for Hoag, we hope it'll become that very soon, is first of all, our patients and our community will have access to the latest advancements in various therapeutics, both device and pharma therapeutics, giving Hoag's recognition throughout not just our community, but the nation, a greater level of portfolio development. Becoming known as an innovation hub leader is very important to the future of Hoag, and this new project will do that. Also, our physicians, many of whom have a passion for entrepreneurship and engagement in research, will have a platform through which they not only engage with us in that research and co-development, but also an entrepreneurial venture for their financial prosperity, which is being diminished through current reimbursement mechanisms. We will accomplish all of this while developing a whole new revenue sharing process through contracts with these entities that allow us licensing fees, royalties, and even equity in their corporations. So great new development that wouldn't have happened without Robert and Kitty's vision of the innovation platform. Many of our innovators are advising us on the development of catalysts, and several of you are on this session tonight. So great thank you for allowing us all of this new innovation. Thank you. Nicole, I think it's your turn.
It's my turn. Thank you, Dr. Beasy. Thank you. I want to start by acknowledging our incredible team here at the Foundation, led by Kaylee Borgschatz, our events manager. We know that, like the rest of us, you are all suffering from a serious case of Zoom fatigue, and so we did everything we could to create as real an experience for you tonight as possible. As you can imagine, that requires a lot of people working behind the scenes, and as I look out at all of them, I want you to know that they had you in mind as they carefully curated this event over the last few months. We look forward to being back together with you soon, though, and hopefully at our next meeting in October. So I know that everyone loves a good trivia question, so we are going to start off with a little bit of a pop quiz. I'm going to give you some directions here, so follow along if you can. Go ahead and go to your chat box, and in there you'll see a link. Go ahead and click that. That will drive you to the polling feature, which we'll utilize again later on in the program when it comes to making your investment allocations. There you go. I already see some people are doing it. Once you submit your answers, come on back and we'll see how we're doing. So looks like everyone's finding the future okay? Okay. So I'm going to give you a quick hint. Robert did make mention of this he gave earlier in his remarks. So it looks like you are all 4.0 students in school. You did an excellent job. The correct answer is 8. So let's dig into that investment recap. As you can see, we have invested over $1.6 million across 8 projects to date. They have touched our institutes, our specialty areas, and our Hoag-wide initiatives. You could find details about the progress of any of these projects in your impact report, but suffice it to say that collectively they have had a tremendous impact on patient experience, research, and process improvement across our enterprise. I do want to draw your attention to one project which was funded last fall, the NK cell therapy program. As you recall, this is a pancreatic cancer research trial which utilizes immunotherapy to allow the body to develop its own antibodies to combat tumor growth. I know there were a lot of members interested in this project in particular, so I'm happy to report that we have confirmed that our principal investigator, Dr. Siri, will return in October and report back in person after a year's worth of research. We'll also continue to invite other physicians back in the future so that you can receive consistent updates on your investment portfolio. Moving along to our financials. As you can see, momentum for Hoag Innovators increases year over year. This is due in part to our members being such incredible champions in our community. You are inviting your friends and colleagues to learn more about innovators. Sorry about that. And experience meetings for themselves oftentimes. It's hard to believe our first meeting happened less than 3 years ago when you think about all we've accomplished together. In the last year and a half, we have doubled our membership, welcoming 15 new families to the fold. And we've raised $5 million in 2021, and it's only May. It is worth noting that data on this slide has been updated since our impact reports went to print, and that we've been recruiting families right up until tonight and expect to continue to add some more in the days ahead. So much of our recent success is due to the matching challenge, which was presented to us last year by Mike and Lori Gray. To provide a little background for those of you who were not innovators at the time, our early members contributed entirely to the Hoag Innovators Fund, which is reflected in that orange bar at the top of the screen. These are the funds we draw from to make current investments and continuously replenish with new gifts. Last spring, Robert and our advisory board were reflecting on the impact that Innovators has had on the innovation platform at Hoag, and they'd started thinking about our future. At the time, they made the decision that we need to establish an endowment fund to ensure that Innovators lasts in perpetuity. To help build momentum, Mike Gray and Lori decided to launch a matching challenge by which we would double the impact of every dollar we raised up to $4 million. That was exactly 1 year ago. So take a minute and think about where we were as a world last spring and what the fundraising landscape must have looked like then. Well, I am thrilled to report that it is 1 year later and we have met the challenge. We've raised $8 million to establish the Hoag Innovators Endowment Fund. We could never have been this successful in the middle of a pandemic, no less, without the generosity of Mike and Lori and their willingness to allow us to leverage their philanthropy in such a meaningful way. I've had the opportunity to partner with Mike in recent months, and I want to express my personal gratitude to you for your leadership in this effort. I also want to acknowledge you, Robert, and the entire advisory board for your foresight and commitment to the future of Hoag Innovators. And thank you to our new members who were inspired to join us on this journey. Welcome to the Innovators family. You can see that the future is very, very bright for Hoag Innovators. And finally, I want to recognize our existing members. So many of you have been with us from the beginning, and you decided to double down and make additional gifts to help us get this endowment up and running. It's your continued support and investment that has made Hoag Innovators all that it is today. At this point, I'd love to invite Mike to share a few words about his inspiration to help us build this endowment.
Hi, can you hear me?
Lucky George.
Awesome. Well, first, I just want to congratulate Hoag on the way they handled, this whole coronavirus thing and getting shots. It was just unbelievable, and it just showed the power of Hoag and how organized they are, and the incredible staff. It was just fantastic, and I'm sure anybody who went through that program experienced the same thing. So I'm actually out of town. That's why Lori's not here. And we just wanted to share a couple minutes. Why did we choose Innovators? Well, we love the idea where we could see where our money was going, be part of the decision making. And most importantly, we thought Robert and Kitty's idea was just a damn good idea. I mean, what a great way to engage people. And that's one of the things Robert is absolutely best at. And then second, why a match? Well, we wanted to see if we could leverage $4 million and create a legacy quickly. And we wanted to see how people would respond. Is this something that really has legs? And we felt if we could kickstart this with $8 million in a year, and as Nicole said, what a year it's been, then we could pass the torch well lit to the next group who want to help that little line right there keep going up. So, I just thank everybody who participated in this world where we hear nothing but bad news. This is a great evening. So Robert and Kitty, thank you guys for your founding of this and your leadership in it. It's been fantastic.
So much, Mike. It's now my pleasure to welcome Dr. Beasy back to the stage and he'll lead us through our physician presentations.
Thank you, Nicole. And Mike, thank you so much. Mike lives just down the street from me, and so our accountability to our community, I feel personally every day that I run by his house. And it's a great pleasure in that context to introduce 4 of my astonishing colleagues that I work with every day. And I can tell you it's one of the great pleasures of my life to have colleagues like the 4 that are about to come up and pitch to you their projects. The first is Dr. David Braxton. Dave is a cerebral guy, especially for a pathologist. He is truly an amazing young scientist and clinician, and serves as the chief of service for our molecular pathology services. You'll hear a little bit of his world in molecular pathology in the presentation he's about to give you, a new tool for cancer molecular diagnostics testing. David.
Thank you, Dr. BZ, for the warm introduction, and thank you for having me here tonight. I'm absolutely delighted. So what is precision oncology? Well, from my perspective, there are a few cornerstones that make up precision oncology. One is prevention and early detection. Another is therapeutics and intervention. There are clinical trials and research. There are health IT and informatics issues, collectively known as big data. If the button will work, we can get there. So my area is molecular diagnostics and biomarkers. I'm a molecular pathologist. I use tools in the laboratory to detect cancer-causing mutations, and that is the field of molecular diagnostics. So here is the cost of sequencing a human genome, and as you can see, that has plummeted quite dramatically over the past few decades. Now, what that allows us to do is sequence everyone's tumor to look for those cancer-causing mutations. So here's an example of that. This is a patient who has metastatic lung cancer. What you can see here on your screen is what the lung cancer looks like under the microscope. You can appreciate that there's a bunch of pink and purple dots there. Those are the cancer cell nuclei. Now, if you imagine that's an aerial photo of a battlefield, and this is the invading tanks and army there. We were able to test this patient's tumor for cancer-causing mutations, and we discovered that this patient has a mutation in a gene called EGFR. Now that's very important because we have specific drugs that can target that EGFR mutation, and after 5 months of therapy, here's what that tumor looks like. You can see that there's rubble of all those invading tanks strewn aside after that bomb of therapy went off. Because of that amazing response, we've seen such an increase in demand for molecular profiling tumors. We've seen 6-fold increase since I started here in 2016 and ran that molecular profiling program. You can see the charts going off. It's going up and up and up each month. There are very significant delays that sometimes occur in testing, though. These are due to complex Medicare rules. These are very difficult and complex assays to run in the laboratory. And, it's very costly for most of these patients and the insurers that provide that. What this often does, it delays treatment for these patients. It's tough to get those results back, and it's tough to get the patient started on therapy. That is a bad problem to have if you are a critically ill patient in our hospital. You need to start therapy immediately. We have to get you these results as fast as possible. So why is it so slow? Well, a traditional molecular diagnostics laboratory is a big space. You have a lot of very skilled personnel like scientists. You have special rules and regulations that require special facilities. You have a lot of very expensive and big, bulky machines, as you can see in this picture here. It all results in taking a significant amount of time, 1 to 2 weeks, to generate your patient's test results. So here is the innovation. A company called BioCartis has miniaturized that laboratory. You can see here, testing for the EGFR gene can be done on something the size of your hand. Fits in a cartridge. You can put that cartridge in this instrument that's the size of a desktop computer. We can detect multiple cancer-causing mutations with this instrumentation. It is a relatively inexpensive piece of machinery, and we have the staff right now in our hospital laboratory that can operate this without any specialized training, without any specialized facilities. And the biggest point here I want to make is that we can get these very critical results to our patients in the same day. So I'm asking you for an investment tonight of $150,000 for the BioCartis IDILA platform so that we can test our patients who are critically ill for these cancer-causing mutations. We believe that once we receive the instrument, we can get this up and running and delivering critical test results to our patients within 3 months.
Sure.
The impact. There's a lot of impact here. Getting same-day results to these critically ill patients will make a world of difference. Just think about how much waiting goes on if you have to wait 1 to 2 weeks for results. We can start these patients on their targeted therapies much quicker with these kinds of testing paradigms. We can apply this to lung cancer first off, expand it to melanoma, thyroid cancer, and colon cancer. We can also expand it to other benefit areas, such as Hoag's developmental therapeutics and clinical trial program. Molecular diagnostics are typically only performed at the large academic medical centers or the high-volume commercial laboratories. So having this instrument here will help differentiate Hoag and the Hoag Family Cancer Institute. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave. Well, that was quite compelling. Our next pitchman, full disclosure, Scott's a radiologist who came from Stanford, a little bit like me, a couple of decades ago. So I realized I have to be very objective about this presentation. Scott is now the Chief of Service in the Department of Radiology, where Marcy and I first teamed up in our Hoag management careers. He supervises our urgent care center imaging as well, and he helped start and directs the 3D imaging and 3D printing lab here at Hoag. He was instrumental in that. He's going to be pitching you Hoag's foray in advanced imaging, utilizing and leveraging artificial intelligence, given the critical impact that that technology is making on diagnoses.
Thank you, BZ, and thank you to the innovators for the opportunity to speak with you this evening about the exciting topic of artificial intelligence and advanced imaging. A deep dive into AI is not possible in the next 6 minutes, but I'll remind you, if you have a smartphone in your pocket or your purse and you access that phone by looking at the camera, you already know a little bit about AI and imaging. Today's radiologist is tasked with assimilating a massive amount of information, not only imaging information, but clinical data and information as well. Sometimes that's simple and straightforward, such as looking at a single chest X-ray, but oftentimes it's much more complex and complicated. This is a series of 2,707 images obtained for a CT angiogram of the head and neck in a patient presenting with acute stroke-like symptoms to the emergency room. The task of the radiologist is to quickly and efficiently analyze all of this data to come up with a diagnosis. The margin for error, 0. If you think about it, radiology is a lot like the children's book, Where's Waldo? The task of the child is to find Waldo in the picture amongst a myriad of extraneous information. But there's a few simple rules. The child knows what Waldo looks like, always has the same hat, glasses, red and white striped shirt. And he can always be found in the image. He's in there once. It's not so straightforward with radiology. For example, this is a 77-year-old patient, thankfully not a Hoag patient, but a case sent to me by a colleague. This is a 77-year-old gentleman who presented to the emergency room after a fall down several flights of stairs, striking his head. Sorry. The images were evaluated rapidly by the radiologist, who concluded that there was a hematoma of the scalp, but there was no evidence of skull fracture, and there was no evidence of bleeding into or adjacent to the brain. This patient was discharged only to return to the ER 6 days later with increasing weakness and changes in mental status. And we can see on this follow-up study that there's actually this significant development of this undulating white area between the skull and the brain on the left side, which represents a significant intracranial hemorrhage or bleeding adjacent to the brain parenchyma. This patient went on to have an extensive craniotomy or a neurosurgical procedure to remove part of the skull to evacuate this blood and to relieve the pressure on the brain. How might this case have looked different if we had AI employed? The patient would have been scanned and those images would have been immediately analyzed by an AI computer. The computer would look for areas of subtle intracranial hemorrhage. It would mark the image if appropriate, and then it would prioritize that study to be looked at by the radiologist in short order by either notification on a smartphone or the radiologist's desktop. In that case, the AI computer would have identified this almost microscopic area of intracranial bleeding adjacent to the left temporal lobe. The patient, instead of being discharged, would have been admitted to the hospital for further care and treatment, and almost assuredly would have avoided the craniotomy down the line. Let's look at another example. Here we have 15 chest x-rays. These are actually all Hoag patients, ranging from a couple of days old to advanced age. Patients in the neonatal ICU, the adult ICU, and the ER. All of these studies were obtained with an indication of shortness of breath, and each of them was ordered as stat. The task of the radiologist, which one should I read first? It's not uncommon that we have 40 or 50 x-rays in the queue to be read, and prioritizing those is a challenge. Do I order them youngest to oldest? Do I try to determine excuse me, which patient may be more acutely ill? Unfortunately, these are all ordered stat, and I don't have a good indication. What if we had an AI module that could prioritize this work list for me? Look for abnormalities such as a lung collapse, a rapid accumulation of fluid around the lung, or an aberrantly placed line or tube. If I turn on my AI module, it identifies this bottom row image. Let's take a closer look. You can see this curvilinear density or line that I've marked by those orange arrows. That represents the edge of the collapsed lung in this patient with what we call a pneumothorax or a lung collapse. This patient requires urgent attention, placement of a chest tube to expand that lung. By notifying the radiologist of such an abnormality, we can prioritize the work list, and as we can see here with these two red marks, these are studies that need to be read in a rapid succession for urgent patient care. So I'm asking for you tonight for your donation of $250,000 for artificial intelligence and advanced imaging program. With that money, we're going to fund our 3D lab to further expand it. We can engage multiple vendors who have solutions which are already FDA approved for clinical use. We would test and validate some of these AI solutions against our Hoag database of millions of patients, and then implement some of these solutions into our daily workflow within the next 12 months. The impact to the patients, I think, is clear. Improved diagnostic accuracy. As I mentioned before, some of these abnormalities are not hard to see, such as the lung collapse, but subtle microscopic intracranial hemorrhage can be challenging and difficult to see. How much more confident could the radiologist be in their interpretation if the AI module also called the study negative? And then efficient turnaround time. Getting the right study in front of the radiologist at the right time is critical to good patient care. Hoag has a long legacy of investing time, energy, and resources into making sure that our radiology department is cutting edge. And with your help, I would like to add adoption of artificial intelligence and imaging to our imaging armamentarium. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. That was terrific and a great pitch. Our next presenter is Mike Demure. Mike is both an MD and an MBA. His entrepreneurial passion and his research expertise have allowed us to steal him from the University of Arizona in a more efficient fashion than would otherwise have been enabled. And he now leads our entire precision medicine approach at the Hoag Cancer Center. And precision medicine goes beyond cancer, by the way. So Mike's an incredible resource for us to have been able to attract to Hoag. He also happens to be an excellent endocrine surgeon. That's his day job. That day job is becoming more and more intense as his expertise as a surgeon grows in the community. Mike will also talk to you about a tool to advance precision medicine and cancer care.
Thank you, BZ, for that kind introduction. I just want to know if my mom can log in and hear the introduction, because she like that. And thank you for the innovators. And we can't do what we do without the support of the philanthropic community here at Hoag. It's unique and really second to none. So what I want to present to you is sort of moving from genes into proteins. I mean, genes are important, as we heard, and we're very committed to that program, but the genes actually encode for proteins. If you think of genes as the blueprint of a house, the house is the body, and that's what's actually built based on the protein. So we want to look at these proteins directly because they're abnormal when the genes are abnormal. So if you think about it, what we want to do is develop a PSA test for every kind of cancer. You know about PSA, most of you do, that if it's going up, you worry about prostate cancer. If you have prostate cancer and the PSA is low, you're assured that a cancer is gone. If it starts coming up, you have to look for recurrence. If it's going down, your treatments are successful. And so it's very useful for doctors. However, we don't have PSAs for most cancers. So what I want to present to you is an idea that we have and we're very excited about, developing essentially a blood test biomarker that's a protein analysis for almost or any kind of cancer, which we don't have for a lot of cancers now. So this allows us to detect cancers early, potentially, particularly in patients that have had surgery, and then you see the biomarker go down, but then if it returns, you worry about the cancer coming back. And think about patients that are getting treated with cancer. They're getting a chemotherapy that might make them sick, makes their hair fall out, makes them feel terrible. And you think about the opportunity cost to the patient of feeling terrible and having all the side effects if the cancer drug is not working and the cancer is growing. You may not know that for 2 or 3 months until the next set of x-rays are done. Well, we want to be able to detect either response or failure of treatment early by looking at these kind of markers. And it's a simple blood test, which is a lot easier than getting x-rays. So this is really built on a technique for analyzing very, very small amounts of protein. And it's done with just a tube of blood. We spin the tube of blood down and then collect out of that by filtering out these little vesicles or particles called exosomes. Exosomes are just little vacuoles that are spit out by cancer cells, and they contain abnormal proteins, DNA, and RNA. And we want to analyze these proteins. And it's done on this machine that it's going to show. There's a little cartoon movie here that'll show you how it works.
The MALDI-TOF process is a two-phase procedure. Initially, the samples are fixed in a crystalline matrix. In the initial ionization step, they're bombarded by a laser. The sample molecules vaporize into the vacuum while being ionized at the same time. High voltage is then applied to accelerate the charged particles. The second step is the time-of-flight mass spectrometry phase. In the linear mode, particles will impinge upon the linear detector within a few nanoseconds after ionization. Higher mass molecules will arrive later than lighter ones. Flight time measurements make it possible to determine molecular masses directly. Each peak in the spectrum corresponds to the specific mass of the particle along the time axis, starting with the ionization moment.
So each of those spikes is a unique protein. And this is some data that was published from a group in Zurich, but it's really what got me thinking along this line. And they took tumors and implanted them into mice. And you see at the day 5 of implantation, you have a baseline protein spectrum, and each of those spikes is a protein. But after just a few days, 12 days, so before tumors are even visible in the mice, you see the blue arrow showing you a new protein spike. And at day 19, after just a little bit more growth of the tumors, there's additional protein spikes. So these are caused by the cancer. So we can pick up very, very small amounts of cancer by just looking for these abnormal protein spikes in the exosomes, which are detected in the blood. And the mice don't have that much blood, so you don't need a lot of blood to be able to detect these. So the program is really going to be this. We're going to take a patient's tumor, and we'll save that, but then we're going to take a tube of blood before surgery, remove the exosomes, and obviously the tumor, and then follow the patient. And we'll get blood tests sequentially as we go forward and then be able to monitor the patient and compare that with their clinical course. So each patient is their own control. We're asking for $350,000, which is the cost of the machine, and the Cancer Center has committed additional funds for operation and maintenance and being able to do the actual studies. So the patient impact obviously is to develop a safe, non-invasive blood test which can monitor cancer, look for recurrence, and also early response to treatment. It expands upon the early detection program within the Cancer Center. This is not a one-trick pony machine. It's useful for lots of other applications which will be available to researchers at Hoag. And it will extend the capabilities of our precision medicine program. So thank you for your attention.
Thanks, Mike. And I want to emphasize that last point. Your donation for this particular instrument would also help other institutes besides cancer, because the interest in proteomics, analyzing blood proteins for certain disorders, Alzheimer's is another example. There's a whole new research field developing around that, multiple sclerosis, et cetera. Looking at the protein products of these disorders in an analytical way will greatly advance therapeutics. Our last presenter, but certainly not least, is Dr. David Ahn. David was handpicked by Chris Iyer, the former director of the Marion Dick Allen Diabetes Center, to take his esteemed place. And that's quite an honor to achieve for a young man from UCLA. David has more than exceeded expectations in his role despite his short time here. He's very interested in innovative products, and what he's pitching to you today is a tool that'll help detect the complications of diabetes in a much more sensitive way.
Thanks, Dr. BZ. What are the chances that in 4 pitches and 4 presenters that there'd be 2 on artificial intelligence and that I'd be the second David? All right, so pause and consider the 5 senses: hearing, smell, taste, touch, and vision. For most people, the prospect of losing their vision is an absolute worst-case scenario, and diabetic retinopathy is the leading cause of vision loss in working-age adults. As you may already know, diabetes is incredibly prevalent in our society, and 34 million people in the United States have diabetes. Out of those patients, 1 out of every 3 patients has some form of diabetic retinopathy. Look at the pictures at the top of the slide. The top right image, there's nothing wrong with your screen. It's meant to represent what you might see if you have severe diabetic retinopathy. In this condition, the blood vessels in the eye are damaged, causing leakage of blood into the eye, and that's why you see those red splotches. But unlike this most severe, very obvious case, what makes diabetic retinopathy particularly scary is that in the early stages, when reversibility and prevention is most important, it is often completely silent and patients have no visual changes whatsoever. That's why it's so important to have annual diabetic eye exams to screen for early detection of diabetic retinopathy. If it's mild, it can serve as a simple wake-up call for patients to take their diabetes more seriously and make dietary adjustments, exercise more frequently, and adjust their medications. If the diabetic retinopathy is more severe at the time of diagnosis, they might benefit from interventions such as laser therapy, surgery, or injections of medications into their eyeball. Therefore, these annual eye exams are important for the early detection and timely treatment, and statistics have shown that this can lead to a 95% reduction in vision loss for these patients. So despite these staggering statistics, unfortunately, more than half of patients with diabetes do not get these annual eye exams. To understand why, put yourself in their shoes. Consider going to the dentist. While we all know that we should go to the dentist, I won't make you raise your hands, but I would suspect that many of you push off going to the dentist, especially in a year like 2020 with COVID-19. As it often is the case with health, we don't always make the best choices, especially when it's inconvenient. That's why some clinics have gone out of their way to purchase these handheld eye cameras to allow annual eye screenings to be performed at the time of an annual physical or a routine visit to the diabetes specialist. However, even these handheld cameras have shortcomings. First of all, the image quality is a bit underwhelming, but more concerning, the interpretation of these images are done off-site by physicians. So the report can take 3 to 4 days to come back, long after the patient has left the office. This can create significant gaps in care, as the patient might not be able to be notified of the result. That's why we're particularly excited about iArt, which is the first FDA-approved artificial intelligence software for the autonomous detection of diabetic retinopathy. With this tool in our diabetes center, a patient in the waiting room can be taken aside by any medical assistant and have a routine annual diabetic eye exam done swiftly. Within 60 seconds, the machine learning algorithm can provide a confident diagnosis of whether or not this patient has diabetic retinopathy or not. Within seconds, while the patient is still in the chair, they might have the immediate reassurance knowing that they don't need another screening exam for another year. If the algorithm does find some sort of anomaly, that can inform my visit with the patient so that I can educate them about the seriousness of this condition, and I can send them home with a referral to see a Hoag-affiliated ophthalmologist in the community. That's why we're asking to the innovators for $50,000 total to purchase 2 separate cameras for our diabetes center location in Newport Beach and our diabetes center in Irvine. These cameras are state-of-the-art, making them future-proof as they provide such high-quality images that as the iArt algorithm continues to evolve and earn more FDA accreditations to diagnose other eye conditions such as macular edema. These camera workstations are also portable, so they can be carried to health fairs and other events in the community, providing annual screening exams for people in Orange County. Speaking of the community, I'd like to take a quick moment to tell you that the Mary and Dick Ellen Diabetes Center is uniquely positioned in that it relies heavily on philanthropy. Across the country, diabetes centers like ours are closing down or losing money because insurance companies don't generally reimburse patient education very well. That's why we're so grateful for the philanthropic community in Newport Beach. Therefore, with your generous donation and the purchase of these cameras, we can serve many patients, over 2,500 seen at our diabetes centers annually, and we would even be able to serve more people in the community at health fairs. The quick interpretation that provides a result in seconds rather than days would allow us to identify retinopathy early and offer patients a better chance for treatment. Our staff has already been trained on these cameras, and this would make us one of the first California hospitals to adopt this technology. To simplify things, I always tell people that my goal at the Diabetes Center is to improve the outcomes of my patients and make their lives easier. And this donation would help us do that. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Wow. These presentations just keep getting better and better. Unbelievable with the things that we're doing at Hoag, and through your gifts and philanthropy, the difference that we're making. I just want to take a moment and talk a little bit about the decision that Soren and I made to become innovators. First and foremost, it's our love of Hoag, love of all things Hoag, and just the passion that Soren has always had for technology and innovation and research. But when I shared with Soren the impact that these investments have made and the significance and the difference that they have made at Hoag, it really became a no-brainer for us. And another differentiator about innovators was what I refer to as active philanthropy. It's being involved. It's really being able to shepherd the resources and be engaged and feel like you're able to decide and steer the next investments that Hoag is going to be making. So very exciting. But I have to say the real kicker was what I referred to when I talked to Soren about it, was the gray match or the gray challenge. And when Mike and Lori committed to the endowment matching fund, where they basically doubled the impact of our gift, it was just the power of that commitment by the Grays that made our gift so easy. So thank you so much for that, and thanks to the Grays for making it happen. So now is one of my favorite times of the evening and the program, where we get to do the Q&A and ask the presenters and begin some dialogue with the questions that you have all sent in. And I have to say, you guys are getting really good at this. So the questions started coming in the moment Dr. Braxton finished his presentation. So you are all very technology savvy. You've got this down. And so I am going to refer back to my phone where they've been coming in and start off with Dr. Braxton. How accurate is this technology?
The technology for IDILA is over 97.5% accurate compared to a similar methodology that we don't have right now. Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty accurate. Okay, Dr. Williams, you're next. Are you ready? What company is the source of the artificial intelligence, the AI, and what is the actual cost for the AI program?
Yeah, so actually there's several hundred companies that are working on AI solutions just in imaging alone. A lot of those are startup companies, and those products are not yet available for clinical use. There is a host of different companies that do offer FDA-approved solutions. One of them is called ADOC, AIDOC. Another one is Nuance, that offers an AI platform. And several of our existing vendors actually offer almost what's like an app store for AI solutions.
Wow.
So Terra Recon, which is the company that makes our 3D imaging software, offers a AI marketplace, if you will, for us to access AI solutions. So the pricing really depends on the vendor and the extent, but for example, the module that I referenced for detection of intracranial hemorrhage is about $25,000 for that one module.
Wow.
And there's a host of different modules for different things: intracranial hemorrhage, pulmonary embolism, tumors, different things like that. So
wow,
a lot of potential.
Thank you for that. Okay, Dr. Demir, you're up. What proteins are you looking for in exosomes? Did I say that right?
Yeah, so that's really interesting. And people have started to identify some of the proteins that are in there. And they are actually proteins that turns out that I studied when I was a research fellow and a young faculty member in a research lab. And these are proteins that they're seeing that are involved in actual cancer biology, or roles we know. These are cancer cells will stick to basement membrane, and these anchor proteins are lost in cancer cells, or there are tumor proteases. And these are enzymes that allow tumor cells to break through basement membranes to invade other tissues and get into the bloodstream to metastasize. So some of the proteins have been identified, and they're involved in known cancer biology.
Wow, fascinating. Thank you. Dr. Ahn, how accurate is the IART technology?
Yeah, so the IR algorithms and their clinical trial data, in one study you have 20,000 patients compared to the gold standard of retinal cameras interpreted by physicians. The sensitivity was about 95%.
Okay.
In a larger data set that they looked at of about 100,000 patients, it came in at around 93% sensitivity. So I think that's why the FDA felt comfortable making them the first approved algorithm.
Perfect. Back to you, Dr. Braxton. What is the difference between RT-PCR technology and sequencing technology?
So RT-PCR is real-time polymerase chain reaction. And so that is...
That's what my guess was going to be.
Yeah. So the difference between RT-PCR and sequencing, we can read each and every base position of a DNA molecule and just have the whole sequence lined up, and we can look for mutations in that sequence. What an RT-PCR test does is it inquiries or investigates and interrogates DNA at specific points in that DNA. So we don't get the full sequence when we do a RT-PCR assay. We are looking for specific mutations in that strand of DNA. The trade-off, of course, is that we get the results quicker. It's much more sensitive in terms of its analytical sensitivity. We can investigate fewer DNA molecules, whereas sequencing requires a lot more tissue and tumor tissues.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Williams, your project name, AI Squared, caught my attention, and I know it's a play on the investment that we've already made in the 3D lab. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, so as I mentioned in my last slide, Hoag has a long legacy of investing in technology for radiology. And one of those areas of investment was a 3D imaging lab. When I came to Hoag, we had access to some 3D imaging tools, but it was very disjointed, and it was being performed by 15 or 20 different technologists. One of the things that I sought to do was centralize that in our 3D lab to have a limited or select number of highly trained technologists doing this processing day in and day out for increased turnaround time, but also quality assurance. So that's sort of the basis for our advanced imaging program. And with the addition of AI, in addition to the modules that I talked about, there's actually AI modules that can speed up our 3D post-processing, developing some of those images that I showed, that rotational 3D image. So it's a natural place to really park our advanced imaging, park our artificial intelligence program alongside with the advanced imaging that's already going on in the 3D lab.
Wow, exciting. I remember when you came back from a weekend at Stanford and said, Marcy, we're going to create this 3D lab, you know, just like Stanford, and I've got it all in my head, and we're going to make it happen. And
it
that
happened.
was years ago, and it happened. So we like to affectionately refer to it as Stanford South at Hoag. So thank you for that, Dr. Williams. Dr. Demir, how do you know that this technology will work?
Well, there's pilot studies. The actual MALDI-TOF is very well used. In fact, we have a similar device in pathology right now that's used for identifying bacteria, what kind of infection is present. It's not available for use for this application, but I've done this through my research career. I've taken technologies and applied them to specific cancers. And each of the elements of what I'm proposing is a standard technology. They just haven't been put together this way before. So we're just taking existing technologies that are there and applying them in a new way. So we know we can make it work.
Great, I love that confidence. Okay, Dr. An, you ready? Do you foresee any challenges integrating these cameras into your work at the Mary and Dick Allen Diabetes Center?
Not really. So we had the luxury of being able to loan out one of these cameras back in March. And so we had it at our facility on loan from the company for a couple weeks, and we got hands-on training for all our medical assistants. It's a little bit interesting. You couldn't really tell from the picture, but it's almost like a video game, trying to capture the right quality image, because that really helps the algorithm do a good job. And so when they took it away, we were really sad. So hopefully we'll get it back with your guys' help. But yeah, so because we already have expertise doing it, I think we'll be able to roll it out pretty fast.
Terrific, terrific. Okay. Last question. You guys ready? Here we go. Dr. Braxton, how will this technology enhance Hoag's clinical trials and research program initiatives?
Once we get this instrument up and running and take care of our patients that are actively needing this, we can now then develop these testing cartridges customized to whatever it is that the clinical trials program is undertaking.
Okay.
If they need to investigate a specific mutation for clinical trial purposes, we can go ahead and customize these cartridges and get those going right away for the clinical trials program.
Terrific. Okay, I've just been notified that you took the last question. So that's a wrap. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being here and for your amazing presentations. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I am going to turn it over to Dennis. As promised earlier in the evening, Dennis is going to give us an update on Harbor Tech Angels. Are you ready, Dennis?
I am. Can you hear me okay?
Perfect. Thank you. Yes, we can.
Great. Well, thanks, Marcy. So the Harbor Tech Angel Group, or HTA for short, is a select group of local experienced investors who are working with Hoag Hospital to create an innovative investment program which offers the opportunity of shared success for both the investor and for Hoag. So I'll basically tell you how that works. So essentially, Hoag identifies early stage companies that approach Hoag for clinical research collaboration, perhaps early adoption of their technology to speed commercialization through Hoag's resources and brand. These are companies that Hoag doctors and or administrators believe will add significant value to Hoag's ability to deliver cutting edge and evidence-based care while running an efficient and growing healthcare business. Now, many of these early stage companies are also seeking capital funding, often with attractive valuations. As a not-for-profit healthcare organization, Hoag itself currently has no mechanism to underwrite nor invest directly in such early-stage companies. It is these companies we focus on, especially those that will benefit from Hoag as an operational site for the early-stage company's products or services. Selected companies are invited to pitch an investment opportunity to the HTA investors. As pointed out on this slide, there is no requirement or obligation for any member of HTA to make an investment. It is hoped that those that invest and make a profit on their investment will consider sharing a portion of that gain with the Hoag Foundation. The opportunity for HTA members can be summarized by the following three things. One, early access and influential insight to companies that already have promising products and services that Hoag is or is in the process of utilizing. Two, the ability to claim a charitable deduction for any gifting of appreciated assets to the Hoag Foundation. And three, the benefit of knowing that their generosity will strengthen Hoag's ability to provide an increasing level of quality patient care to the population of Orange County. And I really don't have to talk to you guys about generosity because that's what you're all about. And I'm very impressed with everything that you guys have done. And is there any interest, as I've talked to BZ about this, obviously we're welcome, any of you would be welcome to join us. And either Marcy or BZ can give you my contact information. Be glad to discuss, answer any questions that you may have or help in any other way. So that it, I think that's a good summary.
Dennis, thank you. This is Robert getting back. Marcy, I think before I just kind of hand the baton back to you, I just want to let everybody know that when we were crafting Innovators, it was important to us that we had some tangible value adds. And we thought that what Dennis and the Harbor Tech Angels were doing was just such an example. I think there's probably a handful of innovators today that are involved with Harbor Tech Angels. They've made personal investments. It's been a good experience, and you should all just know as an innovator that you're invited to join and participate as you choose. So thank you, Dennis, for bringing that to light. I think Marcy and BZ, you've got to give us a hand now with trying to frame what we just heard from these four fabulous doctors. Many of us probably took biology, some took chemistry, but we got a little bit lost there. I'm speaking for myself, maybe. They all seem worthy. I wanted to stand up and applaud them all. So by maintaining that objectivity, could you give us some perspective that will help us answer the four questions that I framed at the onset, so we can then thoughtfully make our votes after you give us a little overview?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Robert. Yeah, it was mind-blowing for me as well. First, I just want to make sure that the Innovators Group understands that we as an organization go through and make sure that before these technologies are presented to innovators, that we are prepared to operationalize and deploy and move forward. So that goes in all aspects, meaning the facilities infrastructure, the people infrastructure, the talent that we will need to recruit into Hoag to assist the physicians with the deployment of this technology, the IT support. There was a last question that came in about what about the software agreements? What about the operating agreements for some of this technology in this software, which is absolutely spot on. So these projects will be supported, funded, budgeted, and executed on if Innovators makes a decision tonight to move forward with any one of the four. So I just wanted to say that. BZ, do you want to tackle how about if you tackle the cancer presentations, and then maybe I'll take Dr. Williams. Does that sound good?
That sounds fine.
Okay.
Yes, so just to summarize and maybe differentiate a little bit between the two precision medicine tools, Dr. Braxton presented to you a tool that is meant to identify specific types of cancer. As he said, not every lung cancer is the same. And when a patient comes in to the hospital in an acute setting, first diagnosed with a lung cancer, choosing the appropriate therapy is critical. And his tool will allow very quickly identify some individually specific aspects of that particular patient's cancer to choose a custom designed chemotherapeutic agent. So that's what his tool is about. Dr. Demure also has a precision medicine tool, but his is different. His monitors the therapy that Dr. Braxton's tool suggested initially to make sure it's being effective. So by sampling the blood of the patient who's being treated at the beginning, and then seeing if new proteins start popping up in the face of what it was thought to be an effective treatment, decisions can be made as to what additional or different types of treatment need to be administered. So those are the two differentiating points of otherwise very impressive developments in precision medicine, specifically aimed at cancer. And as I mentioned, Dr. Demure's tool also allows proteomic analysis of other diseases. So it has that potential synergistic effect with other types of disorders where the proteins involved in that disease, I mentioned Alzheimer's and amyloid as an example, that protein, identifying that in the blood in the face of what is now an available treatment to remove amyloid may become very important down the line. So those are the two cancer type therapies or innovations that were presented to you today.
Great. Thanks, BZ. I hope that was helpful for everyone. I'm going to just tell you, when Dr. Scott Williams came to my office several weeks ago and sat down with me and talked about the AI Squared project that he was going to be presenting tonight, I was on the edge of my seat, because having a radiology background, I remember the day 20, 30 years ago when it was always first in, first out. So the first chest x-rays of the morning were the first ones read. If there was a patient in the emergency room who happened to be, you know, as Dr. Williams said, there could be 50 images on the work list, and you're number 50 in the emergency room, and that could be a critical patient, that could have a negative outcome with that patient. And now you think of the mind-blowing technology and the pace at which innovation and technology has occurred in the last 5, 10 years, where a CT scanner in a single breath hold, so that means taking a breath, hold it, let it out, 3,500 images have been obtained from a CT scanner in one single breath hold. Now, if you're the radiologist reading CT scans that day, and we perform, what would you say, 300, 400 a day?
Oh,
Hundreds.
over 1,000.
That's a lot of CT scans and a lot of images. And if you're that patient that's in the emergency room or in one of our imaging centers across Orange County, and you've got a pain or a shortness of breath, or you've had a really bad headache, your scan, if there's pathology there that's worrisome, is going to immediately go to the top of the work list. So that radiologist, and by the way, let me back up, our radiologists, none of them are generalists. So the way that the Hoag radiologists are deployed every day, you're the neuroradiologist of the day. BZ's looking at me because he's on the neuro rotation, so I'm telling his story. But if you're the neuro doctor or you're the musculoskeletal doctor looking for broken bones, if you're the body doctor reading body images, if you're Dr. Miles Chang and you're on ultrasound, all those images are going to that subspecialty all day long. And so imagine the power of the artificial intelligence being able to say, hey, time is brain, look at this scan first. The others can wait because the AI has kicked in and said, no worrisome pathology, look at this one. So that one to me stood out. And also, Dr. Ahn, with his artificial intelligence as it relates to screening and diabetes, was also very powerful to me. You want to comment on that, BZ?
Yeah, no, I think it's, many of you have had the experience of going to an ophthalmologist, whether it's for your vision test or cataract, and you've had all those tests. And so you don't know that, but you've experienced an early version of what Dr. Ahn was talking about when your ophthalmologist does a thorough exam on you. But this is specifically tailored to the diagnosis of very early diabetic retinopathy, damage to the retina due to diabetes. And so it's a very precision-based type of analysis which can escape the eye, even of a highly trained ophthalmologist. And certainly you want to democratize the ability to detect that early disease process. Don't want to have to go to the ophthalmologist to see it. This is an example of democratization of high-end ophthalmology into a primary care office, specifically into a diabetes center.
Was that helpful, Robert?
Yes, somewhat. It certainly made it a little bit more simple to understand, but we still have the challenge now of trying to differentiate. So for all of you, we're going to open up the mics here, and we're going to all have a chance to share our thoughts. And what I love about this group is that nobody has an opinion. There's no strong-willed folks on the call. So with that, I just want to remind you, your advisory board has recommended that we allocate $500 million today. You can do the math. If we picked all four, that's $800,000. My good friend Mike Gray is a big watcher of the Shark Tank. I come from the private equity and investment management business, so I like a little objective analysis. Mike thinks there needs to be winners and losers. So as much as we want to give to everyone, let's be a good fiduciary for our fund and our endowment and do the hard work. So with that, let's open the mics, if you wouldn't mind, so everybody can have a chance to chat and voice their thoughts on maybe where we should direct this. George, I know you're dying to lead off here, so I see you there looking in. So would you mind leaning in? Yeah, would you mind kicking us off?
Sure, thanks. A couple of questions that I had, particularly for projects 1, 2, and 3, and it goes back to one of your thought-provoking questions that we should be asking. And maybe BZ or Marcy can guide us on this. Which ones of these would put Hoag in, the first place in a competitive race? We're seeing our healthcare market heating up in Orange County. So which ones of these, are the most unique, the best for the community?
You want to take that
No,
one? First, George. I can tell that the Shark Tank analogy, you must be Mr. Wonderful.
Yeah.
So it's I hate to be put on the spot, and if any of you rat me out to my four esteemed colleagues, I'm going to be very upset. So I will tell you that the most ambitious one, the most unique one, is the one Mike Demure presented in terms of advancing precision medicine at Hoag to a level that only a few places around the country have. That said, it's not the most practical one. I think Dr. Williams's artificial intelligence ambitions would be the most practical, and the next would be Dr. Braxton's. Dr. Ahn, I think that tool is going to be ubiquitous very soon. Yeah. So I don't know if you sensed any bias there, but those are my honest reactions to your question.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Funny.
Very honest. Very good.
George, because BZ and I honestly did not talk about this before tonight, and I agree with him wholeheartedly with Dr. Williams and the pathology solution.
What I love about Marcy is you can't tell that she came from the radiology world, can you? No,
I'm an emotional leader. I put it all out there.
Marcy and I started working together, and I knew pretty soon she'd become my boss, and here we are.
Oh, stop.
I love it.
So very helpful. Others that want to contribute, we're going to get to the vote and get you out of here maybe 5 minutes late. We'll have you off to your next chapter in the evening, but let's hang in. This is the important part. Don Johnson, were you at a comment?
Yeah, just a comment. The $50,000 for the diabetic eye exam, Hoag is going to do that anyway. That doesn't take a special allocation here. So those funds can be directed to maybe a bigger, more critical type of investment, it seems to me.
Yeah.
no question.
I think that's a fair observation. I think all of these are worthy. My guess is there were probably 9 to 10 things presented, and they picked 4, and these are all worthy, but I'm sure they'll have their channel funding. Honey, somebody else was going to say something? Oh, the chat list is coming together. Some people are trying to already influence the voting, I think. In their order of voting. Don't look. Be your own person. Who else would like to contribute? I'd pick on Dr. Yim or Dr. Chang, but that's probably not fair. So we'll let them be. Anybody else have a contribution or a strong thought that might help us as we put our votes forth? All right. So I was reminded that when you do your voting, that we, let's just see here. There was something that when it prompts you, you can skip the prompt that asks you to put your name on the website. So I think everybody would, just to understand how this is going to go, you're going to go into the chat room. It's going to pop up events HFF to everyone. You're then going to rank the 4. We're going to then come back and have some conversation. It looks like we're ready to go. So if you're, keep it to yourself now. Let's have some surprises, and you're going to prioritize these.
My first thought was,
Keep it to yourself.
You can mute yourself, George. All right, let's. Which one about this one? First.
yeah, you're good.
Make it 1.
Good.
Yeah, oh, well, okay.
That's it.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So let us know if want to give everybody the proper time here. You're probably figuring out, you move the arrows up and down to prioritize where you want to stack your 1st to 4th on the program. And then you hit submit.
Is anyone having any problems casting their vote?
Yeah, Nicole, the Roberts are.
Okay. Did you click on that link in the chat to go back to the poll feature? Did you find that, Mike?
No.
So go back to your chat at the bottom there. And right above the last comment is the hyperlink. That'll take you back over to the poll feature. It'll open a new page in your browser.
Say that one again.
So do you see the link in the chat feature? It's pollev.com.
No.
I don't see it either.
Okay. Can you, Kara, can you resend that so it shows up at the bottom of the chat for everyone? The chat is at the bottom of your screen on Zoom.
If you're on iPad, though, it's on the top right where it says more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a bit helpful there, sir.
Anytime.
Team effort here. Thank you, guys.
I'm still not seeing it.
Okay. Is it appearing? Are you on an iPad or a desktop?
A laptop.
Laptop. Okay. Go down toward, hover your mouse toward the bottom of your screen.
Yeah.
Do you see a chat with the little like,
Yeah.
okay, click that.
Okay.
And then right above the last comment is a hyperlink. Click that.
Okay, got it.
Excellent. That'll take you to a new page in your browser, and from there you can vote. And then the results come through in real time here. Mike, did you have another question, Mike Roberts?
Don, you just rank them. You just move the cursor and you'll see arrows up and down to prioritize 1 through 4 as you do it.
Yeah, if you click on just one of them, that allows you to either click up or down on that item to rank it
There you go.
in and amongst the other ones.
Okay, if any of you are having a problem and cannot find the poll, just go ahead and rank them 1 through 4 here in the chat feature. And we'll calculate that on our end. Any other questions or everyone finding it okay at this point?
It looks like we've got, what, 11 votes in. But if I want to make sure that everybody that's an innovator, we're trying to focus on the innovators as the voters, that you've had a chance to make your voice be heard. And if somebody can't, but they passionately want to vote, maybe Nicole, if everybody else has got theirs in, they can just share their thoughts so we can see if they align with where we are with the rest.
Sure, and Robert, I just sent you Marcy and Soren's vote via text.
Great, okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm not getting to the voting part, but I would rank 1, 2, 3, 4 in that order.
I think you're saying as the way they presented.
Yes.
Yep.
Or the way that we're seeing them now on our screen.
Yep, I'm not going to change anything.
Okay, thank you for that. So maybe unless somebody's still working through it, why don't we go back to seeing everybody view if we could? Well, maybe, I'm sorry, Nicole, let's leave this here because this will help the conversation. So are you good, Nicole? If we move forward now with
I think so. I just want to make one last check in that everybody, all of our innovators have had a chance to cast a vote. And if you didn't, feel free to chime in now and we'll make sure we tabulate that in there.
Nicole, the Roberts support the ranking that we see on the screen.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Okay, Robert, go ahead.
So we obviously now get to be asset allocators and think through how we want to spend our $500,000 as good stewards of this philanthropy, knowing that what we don't spend is there for another day. And certainly, you know, I think it's pretty clear we can fund 1 and 2, which seems to have some consistency. While I think there was support for the third one, it does have a dollar amount that we cannot meet. You know, we could hypothetically allocate some money towards it, subject to then the foundation finding a match. I'm referring to the Cancer Early Detection Analysis Lab. We could mathematically allocate $100,000 to that, subject to a $250,000 funding. Or we can stand pat and just allocate to the first 2 and move the $100,000 forward to the next time. Can I get some thoughts on that?
I would allocate the 100,000 to it, subject to a match or fulfillment.
Okay. Other thoughts?
Agreed.
Okay. I can't see everybody. Nicole, maybe we can now go to the grouping. Thank you very much. So if we, Mike Gray, I know I'll hear from you at some point on this.
Oh, there's Dan.
Your buddy Roberts knows you. He likes that.
I haven't said a word.
Oh, but I want to hear from you. What do you think?
I think the idea that that Mr. Johnson had was a good one. To allocate the first 2 and take 100 of it and put it towards the third one.
Subject to them finding a match for the 250.
Yes, that's a great idea.
I like it.
Okay.
I
So
vote for it.
I'm hearing some consensus there.
Yeah.
You good with that, Eric? Good, I see you down there.
Yeah, we are.
I'd ask our CEO of our hospital, but I'm sure he can't be objective on this. Robert, can you say hello to everybody?
Hello, and no, I'm not objective, so I won't say anymore.
Oh, that's funny.
Isn't that kind of like asking the fox if he wants some extra chickens?
Yeah.
I will visit you later on this week.
Well, guys, we've done really well tonight. We've reached consensus pretty
Great.
efficiently.
Very good.
It's 7:04. This couldn't have gone better from my perspective, and hopefully we don't have to deal with all the technology again. I think it was a wonderful night for innovators and for Hoag, and you should all feel very proud of what you did tonight. You did made a big difference in our community, and I have no doubt this is going to grow and continue to be something pretty dynamic, as evidenced by the efforts. You should all know that those doctors, each of them practiced that several times. You know the team well enough that they weren't going to let them do a first show tonight, and I got to tell you, they did a heck of a job. I
They
think
did.
Great presentations.
Yeah.
Well done.
Robert,
yes.
hi, this is Vicki Booth.
Hey, Vicki Booth.
How are you?
Good. I thought you might join us. You got your mom and dad there?
I'll show you the video. We're
Oh.
all here. Hey, Jenny.
Hello.
Hey,
And
Where are
Lucy
you?
And Bill. We're all here.
Hey,
I
There,
messaged you directly, but you didn't see it apparently.
Where is she?
right there.
I saw Bill. I saw
Hey,
Billy's.
Or
text.
video.
Oh,
Can-
Vicky,
Can we-
Robert,
can we
Robert, put
join
everybody on the screen.
innovators?
sorry. Vicky wants to contribute.
Can we join innovators?
Oh my gosh, are you serious?
Sure.
No.
Hi, Jenny.
We would love to have you join Innovators. What a special treat. That would be great. Does that mean you want to now make a vote on tonight's decision?
Well, we would like to be the 250 match to get Dr. Demur's son also.
Well
I'm
done.
so impressed and so grateful for all the work that you all have done.
My
And
God.
it was exciting for us to be a part of it and get to watch and listen, and we want to help.
Oh,
My gosh, you made
awesome. Oh, wow.
All for all that you've been doing. It's so impressive.
yeah.
That's so
Where's
awesome.
Jenny?
What a treat. Pretty amazing. We got lots more to do as a group, but I can't thank everybody enough. And I wish I was with all of you and we could toast a glass and more formally celebrate this, but we'll do this in the fall. So thanks to everybody for your effort.
That's
It's just
phenomenal.
mind-boggling. Thank you, Vicki.
Thank you.
I'm glad you chimed in. Thank you, everybody.
There you go, Uber off.
Oh, awesome.
All right. Well, you're all free. You're all free to go now, unless you want to hang out some more.
You're fun people to hang out with.
We'll see you all in October.
We'll see you
Thank
in
you
October.
so much.
Sounds good.
Thank you
Well,
all.
All right, great meeting, Robert.
Thank you,
Very
guys.
well
Thank you,
done,
Jenny
guys.
and Peter and Vicky. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thanks, everybody.